Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. Welcome. Today, I'm going to be talking about fear. And before I do, I wanted to tell you that if you have not checked me out on Facebook yet, I just posted my masterpiece. I upcycled a dresser that was made of cherry wood and I reimagined it. It is white now and it has what's called paradise blue, like highlights, accents. There you go. And it's got new glass knobs and stuff. I'm super, super proud of this one. So check it out on Facebook. And I'm going to be posting a lot of the stuff that I've been doing because I haven't really been like posting about it on social media or anything. And I'm creating an Etsy page because I want to start. Like, I love creating these crafts, but I don't want to keep them. The dresser I want to keep because it matches my bedroom. But there's tons of stuff that I'm doing for the love of doing that, but not because I want to keep what comes out of it in the end. So I thought what I had done in the past when I was early in sobriety is that I would get something from Goodwill, excuse me, and no, I did not have my ice cream cone yet. I would get something from Goodwill, I would upcycle it, and then I would donate it back to Goodwill. And that was fun, and it was a good way for me to get to be creative, not spend a lot of money, and almost like, I don't know, create something beautiful that somebody could have. So, I mean, they have to buy it, but so like one of the things I did was I bought a completely broken, just trashed clock. It was like one of those clocks you would put on a mantle, and it was just completely trash. It was broken, it didn't work, and like the wood on it was broken. So I don't even know why it was for sale. Well, because somebody like me would buy it. So I bought it and I turned it into a jewelry box, a little jewelry like cabinet. And that was kind of a cool one. I think it could have been much better, but that was a good example of I bought it from Goodwill and then I gave it back to Goodwill when I was done. So that's a fun way of doing that kind of upcycling. But I want to maybe sell stuff because I feel like I'm getting better at it and I feel like maybe somebody would want to buy the stuff that I make. So that's really exciting and it's all in line with my recovery. I feel like, transformation and taking something that um, could have been once forgotten and turning it into something beautiful, kind of like what we do in recovery. So I think that's all I wanted to say about that. Yeah, it was just to check out my dresser that I made and stay tuned for more crafts that I've been doing. So I want to talk about conquering fear and fear. Whew. So fear, I don't want to sound super generic when I say this, but it is absolutely 100% true. Fear ruled my life before I got sober, period. It did. Um, I've talked recently a lot about my anxiety issues and how my medication didn't work. And so I would drink because it would kind of numb it. It would pare it down a little bit. It didn't totally get rid of my fears, my anxieties, but alcohol did calm it down temporarily. And so I've learned both through my drinking my past with alcohol and this journey I've been on with stroke recovery, that how we deal with fear can truly shape our lives, shape the way we live our lives, living a fulfilling life or not. So that's really what I want to talk about. So what it used to be like in the past, when fear showed up in my life, my instinct was to avoid it, turn away from it, run, and literally hide. If something, if I was nervous about something or scared of something, I would definitely drink more. I was already drinking 24/7, but I would just drink to the point where I was just not able to function at that point because I was trying to numb it. And there was a point where I couldn't. It was consuming me so much that the only way to numb it was to be asleep. And that's what I ended up doing. I was drinking to the point of just passing out constantly. And if I was awake, I would retreat into like the deepest corners of my home. I was in bed under the covers a lot of times because I did not want to face things. I, gosh, it just to think back on waking up and just simply to wake up and face the day and face work, and it was just debilitating. It gives me the chills to think about how afraid I was to just face the day. Nobody should live like that. um so if you do live like that, man, I know what that feels like. Um, and the problem was that although it would, I could avoid the fear, I could make it subside a little bit. Like it was always going to be there. It doesn't make it go away. Like it delays it. Um, And that avoidance really made fear fester and grow deeper roots in my life. And while I thought that I was protecting myself, I was actually giving fear the power to control my life, to linger so much longer. I didn't take action on anything. Um, Fight or flight, I was I was flight constantly. For me, alcohol was the easiest escape from the things that I didn't want to face, from the emotions, the pain, like so much pain. And if I were to, if my mom were to ask me, what hurt? Like, what was the emotional pain you were dealing with? I don't know how to answer that because it was pain, emotional pain that I had created. It was emotional pain that started years before, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to just let something go. I didn't know how to forget about it. It just lingered. And more pain started to build on top of the old pain. And I just kept trying to drink it away. And that didn't do anything. It certainly didn't make any of it go away. It really, I think, multiplied or, exponentially increased the speed of the emotional pain building when I was drinking. Um, so I drank to not feel that emotional pain to its depths constantly. If I drank, it would lighten it a little bit. I could like take a breath and then I would wake up to that same pain and it felt worse. It felt worse the next day every time. I would drink to avoid my responsibilities. I would drink to avoid dealing with relationships. You name it. I was drinking to avoid it. And the moment I felt overwhelmed, my solution was to hide from it. And it was temporary relief at its best. And it set me up for a cycle of increasing fear that I never faced. Today, things look completely different. It almost, when I think back to that, all of that pain, that avoidance, it doesn't even seem like it was me. It seems like it was just a different person. Um, I mean, it is me. I have the same feelings. I feel sorry for that version of me. Um, I wish I could go back and save her. I mean, I have saved her, but I could have saved her earlier. But, when you think back and start thinking regretfully, that's not healthy because it took what it took for me to be here today, to finally get it, to finally save her. So now when I feel fear creeping in, instead of avoiding it or retreating, I actually do the opposite. I lean toward it. I walk into it. And I do that as soon as possible. I do it almost so fast. I mean, I have to have those pauses that I talk about all the time. So I have to pause, but I assess the situation. And when I'm comfortable with the decision that I'm making to take an action, I go ahead and take it because the longer that I sit in that fear or anxiety, the stronger its hold becomes on me. And it's like this thick fog that if left alone, it can completely white out my sense of direction in my life. I have no idea what path to take. Um, but if I start seeing the fog settling, I have to walk through it before it settles. So the sooner I take action, the sooner I can start to clear that fog away and protect my serenity, because that's what is at risk, is my serenity. This isn't just about not drinking. I say that a lot. This is another aspect of it. It it applies to every area of my life, whether I'm afraid of my what's going to happen when I go to the doctor, what's going to happen oh, with the whole social security thing. You guys know, I was so upset about that. But what did I do? I did the paperwork. I mean, I it was my job. That was my job to try to work out all this medical, the doctors, the insurance, my medical records, all with this aching in my head constantly from my stroke. And, but that was the only way to get to the other side for me. If I were to avoid it, I probably would not have been approved, right? I wouldn't have been approved because I wouldn't have done the work to that was required in order to get approved. Um, so if I'm afraid of anything that has to do with this stroke recovery, if I'm afraid of calling someone and having a difficult conversation or a critical conversation, um, if I'm afraid of pushing myself too far in stroke recovery, in this vestibular therapy and stuff, my approach is the same. I just do it. I just do it because I understand that the action not only reduces the fear's power over me, but it gets me closer to ending the fear, to getting through it. Um, One of the biggest lessons that I've learned in both sobriety and stroke recovery is that this serenity that I have is like a treasure. And it is so important to me that it is worth protecting. A couple days ago, when I was talking about protecting our serenity, and I was doing the cover, every episode has a cover photo and it's a cartoon. And I immediately thought when I finished that episode about protecting our serenity, I was thinking about like this woman protecting a treasure, and fighting off all of these bad people. And that's why that was the cover photo for that one, the cartoon for that one, because that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm like, get my sword out and just fight off anyone or anything that is attacking my serenity, because it is just a treasure to me. And the way that I protect it is by not allowing stuff to collect in my dark place, because my serenity can so easily get covered up with wacko thinking, the chaos in my head, the hamster that's running around in the wheel in my head. And that fear can just grow out of control. When something isn't right in my life, it has to do with me. If something isn't right with me, something's not right with me, if that makes sense. I need to do something if something isn't right. I don't just sit and have somebody fix whatever it is. If I'm upset with somebody, I need to talk to the person that I'm upset about and say, I don't want to feel this way anymore. So let's talk about it, and let me, if I can, share with you what I'm feeling so I can let it go. And as long as I'm not hurting the other person, honestly, sometimes you have to hurt other people in order to resolve problems. Not everything is can you avoid confrontation. But I try not to hurt other people, but if I'm upset with somebody, I need to say it, even if it's I'm afraid to, and I'm afraid I'm going to hurt their feelings or something like that. It's so important for me to get it out of me. I need to clean my side of the street. And most often, if I'm going to gently approach somebody to share with them what I might be upset about, if I choose the right words and it's coming from the right place and it's coming from love and respect, it's not going to be a confrontation. It's going to be a cleansing experience, I don't want to sit in that discomfort anymore. And if I do, it will erode my peace of mind and it will just sit on top of my serenity, and I don't get to feel it that day. And we don't live long enough for me to skip a day not feeling serene. So here's where the willingness comes in. Like, the process doesn't work if I'm not willing. I have to be willing to confront the fear, willing to accept that it won't always be easy, and willing to take the necessary steps to address it. It's hard. It's hard. But that doesn't mean you don't do it. Sometimes the willingness of itself feels like the hardest part, because that's the part where fear blocks you. It's like, if I can just get through, crack that door that breaks the seal on the fear, then I've gotten through the hardest part. And that's just, if I need to talk to somebody, that's just picking up the phone and dialing. That's the willingness. And then from there, I really, a lot of times, am doing a little bit of a leap of faith, that I trust that when the person picks up the phone, I'm going to know what to say, and it's going to go the way that it needs to go. And I remind myself that I have done it before. And if I've done it before, I can do it again. That has been really important to me in recovery. My firsts. If you remember, I've talked about firsts in several episodes. Like, when I first got sober, doing things like going to my first happy hour with work, going to my first wedding without drinking, vacuuming for the first time without a glass of wine in my hand. All of that stuff was hard. But after I did it once, I knew that I could do it again. And the same applied when I started doing things that were hard, like steps 8 and 9, where we're making amends to other people. It was hard. And it was hard the first time, and it was hard the seventh time. But I knew that I did it before, so I could do it again. Um, and then prayer it's become a tool for me. Even though I bet you my prayer doesn't sound like anybody else's, because it's my own concept of my higher power, and I can have whatever relationship I want with it. It's like my thing, just like my serenity is my thing and it's my treasure and I get to protect it. Prayer's my thing too. It's nobody else's business. I don't have to talk about it to you all. I don't have to talk about it with my family or my kids or anybody. I don't, for all anybody knows, I could have been praying my whole life, out loud and doing it in the bathroom and nobody would have known. I just happened to be sharing with you my experience, my journey with how I have developed this prayer in my life because I wanted, for anyone else who doesn't really have a history with prayer and feeling comfortable with it, I want you to know that you're not the only one. That I didn't start out this way, but it has become a really great tool for me when I'm dealing with fear. It reminds me that I'm not doing this alone. Um, it has truly been this like, for a while I thought it was like I thought it was, let me see. I felt like it was more so like a voice in my head, like I was talking to myself, if that makes sense. That's what I felt like I was doing when I was praying. I'm like, okay, I'm just talking to myself. That's what I'm doing. And who knows if prayer is really just me talking to myself. Who cares? But it makes me feel like I'm not alone, right? If I'm talking to myself, then my other self is helping me along. It also reminds me that I'm not in control of everything. I was going to say anything, but I'm not in control of everything. Um, I'm only in control of my behavior and my actions, my decisions. And it's okay to not be in control of anything else. It's better that way. I've learned it's better if things don't go the way that I planned. Things seem to be going better than the way that I planned. I can't control the outcomes of situations, but I can control how I respond to them. When I pray, I'm reminded of thy will be done, not mine. That's what I do at the end of every prayer, thy will be done, not mine, because it brings me a sense of peace knowing that no matter what happens in my life, things are happening the way that they should, you know? Um, prayer helps me to accept that even though I'm afraid, I don't have to let that control my life. I don't have to sit in it. I can actually walk with fear. I can actually smile with fear. That goes into the idea of these complex emotions, like as human beings, we are capable of being sad and laughing at the same time. We're capable of complex emotions, feeling multiple things at the same time. And I know now that even though I'm afraid or nervous, I can still be courageous. I can still be happy. I can still be concerned. I can still be hopeful. Like fear does not have to consume me so that I don't feel anything else. Um, and when I keep this feeling of being connected with my higher power and trusting that everything is okay and will be okay no matter the outcome. I just keep that line of communication open with my higher power at all times, meaning like if something happens, oh, I'll give you an example. I walked my dog. I feel like that's all I do is walk my dog. I was walking my dog this evening and it was so pretty outside. And I found that today or this evening when I was walking, I was able to look around a little bit more without my head hurting. So I think so. It's Monday. So it's been 3 days since my trip to DC, and I was feeling pretty bad Saturday and Sunday. I don't know. I don't know if I would say bad, but feeling very fatigued and a bit dizzy. And I told you guys I was feeling kind of like it sucks to live this way, feeling a little bit of self-pity. But I was walking Autumn today and I was looking around a little bit. Like I was looked at somebody's garden and then I looked over at a tree and I thought to myself, huh, I'm actually looking around a little bit. And um and that was good. Um so I kind of looked up at the sky. I've told you that's what I do. I look up at the sky and say thank you. That's me having that open line of communication. So I feel like I'm not just like praying before I go to bed. I'm praying throughout the day with little like thank yous, little, can you help me out here? Little things like that. That makes me feel like I'm hanging out with this higher power of mine. And that works for me. And whatever keeps me sober and whatever keeps me feeling like I can face another day, I'll take it. Um, Fear is inevitable. Anxiety is inevitable. But it doesn't have to consume us. When we avoid fear, we are letting it take root. When we face it, we are taking away its power. And if you're willing to lean into the fear, do it anyway, take action, do the opposite of what your instinct is telling you to do. Your instinct might be trying to protect you, fight or flight. But what I had to do is start doing the opposite. That's kind of like George Costanza on Seinfeld. If you've seen that episode, do the opposite. um, I, in early sobriety, started to do the opposite. If I was afraid to call somebody, I would pick up the phone immediately. I would turn off my wanter and I would pick up the phone and call immediately because I knew that that fear was going to take root if I didn't just take action right then. So you can protect your peace of mind and continue to walk forward in your recovery with fear. It doesn't have to be something you're fighting. It can be something that you carry. It's not carrying you, you're carrying it, you know? So, I hope that that is helpful. It's been really pivotal for me in order to try to stay calmer each day. And I would say on a daily basis, there's usually at least one thing that I'm nervous about. And I try to, on a daily basis, take action and do something about it. If I don't, I'll know it. I'll know it by the end of the day, or I'll know it by the next day. And so I think it's so important to to tackle things like right when you start feeling it, because that's when it's easiest to, I think, make a difference. So that's what I got. Thank you for joining me today on today's episode of Recovery Daily Podcast. I'll talk to you tomorrow.